Okay, it is lunchtime at the AMS Centennial meeting on Monday. And we have Kate Becker from NESDIS here for AMS on the Air, our daily podcast here from the annual meeting. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, Andy.
Can you tell us real quick, what is your job at NESDIS?
Yes, of course. I'd be happy to. Thanks so much for having me. I work in the NOAA NESDIS Office of Systems Architecture and Advanced Planning. So if we just start with what NESDIS stands for, that's the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service. And it's the part of NOAA that's responsible for building and operating the country's weather satellites. And the office that I'm in, Systems Architecture and Advanced Planning, specifically looks at what satellites are we building for the future, what's going to be coming up next. And because our satellites are such complex systems, we often have to start thinking about that type of thing 5 to 10 years in advance of when we want to fly. So we're looking 5 to 10 to 15 years out from now and thinking about what great things we're going to fly next.
So this sounds absolutely fascinating to me, but it also sounds like a job that you probably didn't grow up as a little child pursuing. So how did you get from a physics bachelor's degree to working on predicting what satellites will be in the future?
So I was lucky enough to grow up next to a really great space museum in my home state of Kansas. And there's a great museum called the Kansas Cosmosphere in the middle of Kansas in Hutchinson. If you ever driving through and want to check it out, I highly recommend it. And that's where I kind of caught the space bug. And my physics degree was part of exploring that, but I was also very interested in working specifically with satellites and in the space arena. I wanted to be an astronaut for a lot of my life, but then I realized I also wanted to work on things that really affected how we live life here on Earth. And so working for NOAA and working on NOAA satellite programs is a great way to bring those all together, because we're using satellites to really better life here on Earth, provide forecasts, and provide long-term monitoring that we need over a range of years. And I also thinking about doing things well and wanting to affect life on Earth. I think policy is a big part of that, and policy is a big part of what I do in NESDIS. And I think we need to have the right policies in place and understand the importance of the decisions that we're making, so that we can sustain the things that the great scientific advancements that we're trying to make happen.
So that sounds like a really complicated field. You need skills from a huge range of fields. What helped you pick up the tools that you need to be successful at what you do?
I actually came from a background in a community. My family came from, like I said, in Kansas, and I grew up in a Mennonite, in a Christian denomination that is heavily values conflict resolution. And so now that I live in Washington, D.C., I definitely appreciate the value of good conflict resolution skills. So I had a lot of that built in kind of from an early age, and was always very interested in that. And I think one of the primary skills that I've developed over the years, you mentioned the physics degree I have, and then I did go to seminary and got a theology and ethics degree, and then I got a degree in international science and technology policy at George Washington University in D.C., where seeing things and getting to study from all of those different perspectives, I think really helped me understand that anyone coming to a problem or that they're trying to solve, especially a large, complex problem like building weather satellites, everyone's going to be coming from a different perspective and have a variety of priorities. And because I've studied and experienced things from a variety of different perspectives, I think that helps me to put together a story of when people might be saying different things. It sounds like they might be disagreeing, but if you do a little work and move things around a little bit, you can get to a point where you understand things that people have in common and how to work to a common goal. Sometimes I say it's like math, except the equations have people in them instead of numbers.
I like that analogy a lot. Now, at NESDIS, you say you deal with the future of the nation's weather satellites. It looks to me as an outsider that the satellite business has been changing faster over the last 10 years than it probably did over the previous 50 years. What are the major developments that you see, and what does it mean for NOAA?
Well, that's a great question, and I love getting that question right now because I think I am very lucky to be where I am. I think we're in a very exciting time. Like you said, NOAA has, in the last 5 years, we've just started now launching the new generation of really exciting satellite programs that we have, and that's the JPSS and GOES-R satellite programs. They're heavily featured here at the annual meeting this week, and you can go to a lot of sessions about those, and they're amazingly complex. They're giving us capabilities. They're giving forecasters capabilities that they've never had before. And the amazing thing about those programs is they're so advanced, and at the same time, we started building those in the early 2000s. So we're flying things now that were designed 15 plus years ago. And I think that's, so our systems are incredibly capable, but they are not very adaptable, or we can't change tracks at a rapid pace when you're building such complex systems over long time periods like that. So one of the things that is exciting is the potential to shorten that development time frame, and a lot of that, I would say, while not sacrificing the capabilities that those satellites have, though that will obviously be a trade-off. In how fast we want to build versus how much capability we want to have. I think the part that is most exciting with regard to that is that there are so many more players in the arena now than there ever have been before. And for NESDIS, that means we have more international partners to work with than we ever have before, flying all kinds of satellites, and the commercial sector is getting more involved and in different ways than they have before. The industry is heavily involved and built all of the instruments and the satellites on the GOES-R and JPSS series. We contract out to companies to build those. So industry has been involved from the beginning, but the commercial sector is now getting involved in different ways of launching their own satellites, flying things on much shorter timelines, less expensive. And for NESDIS, that means that we have a whole array of capabilities that we can sort of choose from and make use of and serve up to our users, who primarily the National Weather Service and also in NOAA and other users around the world, to be able to bring all of that data together from our international partners, from commercial, from our own NOAA satellites, and put that data together in a way that is easy for forecasters to make use of and creates cohesive products that tell us more about our environment than we've been able to know before.
Wow. So this is really a whole host of questions that you opened up here. You mentioned international collaborations, and I actually have like a two-part question for this, but I'm going to start you on one. So there's a number of other countries that have satellites in space. The US has very different relationships with those countries. How are we planning our satellites with respect to theirs?
That's a great question. We have long-standing partnerships with a number of different countries, and in fact, weather data sharing internationally goes back to the 1800s, and it's been one of the longest-standing scientific exchanges of critical information. And you could even say that it's national security information. It's information that can affect the safety of our citizens and our lives and our livelihoods, and yet, over the years, countries have remained committed to sharing that data with each other, even in times of conflict. Those commitments have stayed true. So we have a long-standing precedent of sharing all of our data on a full and open basis with our partners around the world. The Europeans are critical partners for us in the low Earth orbit satellites that we fly, our polar satellites, which are the primary input to 3 to 7 day weather forecasts. We fly in a particular polar orbit, and the Europeans fly slightly off from us in a different polar orbit, and so they give us all of their data, and we get all of and we give them all of our data, and that's every day. So every time the forecast initiates, it has that European data in it, and their models have our data in it as well. And so that's not the kind of collaboration that you can say, oh, I'll get to writing that agreement a little bit later. That's not so important. No, that's a daily input into our weather forecast, and so that's a very operational and routine collaboration that we have with the Europeans. And we also have strong relationships like that with other countries as well. And as I said, we're expanding to working with other partners who are more and more countries are getting involved in space and have more capabilities. So we're looking at new partners all the time.
Great. So my second part of the question is, there's a even larger group of countries that doesn't have any satellite programs. How are we making sure that we take care of the less capable countries in the world?
We, like I said, our data is open, available on a full and open basis to anyone who wants to access it, and that's the same for our model outputs as well. And so countries do not have to have their own satellite capabilities in order to access our data that they can make use of. NOAA also works a lot through not only in bilateral arrangements like I was talking about with Europe, but also in a lot of multilateral fora. And there's fora like GEO, the Group on Earth Observations, and CEOS, the Committee on Earth and Observation Satellites, where all nations who are interested in making use of the satellite data can come together. And for instance, in CEOS, there's a working group called Data Democracy and capacity building, and so that's a working group that NOAA is involved in and has led at times that is specifically dedicated to making sure that to building capacity in countries that don't have their own capabilities or don't have the same capabilities that we do in the U.S. and making sure that they can access the data and can make it useful for their particular regional needs.
Well, Kate, thank you so much. That's all the time we have today, but knowing that you are working on the future of our satellites makes me more optimistic that we will be launching what we need to launch to be successful here at the Weather Water Climate Interface.
Thanks very much, Andy.